Right, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Before I get into today's teaching, I do want to show you guys something that my wife gave to me, that one of the other sisters here did. We've been working a lot on trying to develop the children's program. In fact, we're going to be doing some construction out in the other area to expand the room for the children's area. And this is a prime example of why. This is from the last Torah parsha of Bereshit, Vayetshi, and he lived. And this was put together by teachers for the children. And I'm just so impressed. This is what our kids are learning. This is phenomenal. It says Bereshit, and then it has the scripture verse here. But look at this. This is amazing. You open it up here, and you've got the whole of the days of, it's a recap on Bereshit for the children, Genesis. You've got the whole of the creation story here. And then here you have got the, from Adam to Joseph, you've got a whole lineage chart put together here. This is my favorite right here. Sodom and Gomorrah. You've got the angels fleeing. And then here is Lot's wife. And then you flip her over, and that's actually full of salt. That's the best part right there. We've got Jacob's ladder. This is Noah's Ark right here, and then you spin this around and it gives you all kinds of fabulous information. Let me read one. What is pitch? According to Bereshit, Genesis 6:14, the ark was coated inside and out with pitch. And then it goes on to tell you what the pitch was. It was a gum-like resin. So, and of these, if you spin this around, then here we've got Yahweh's promises to Abraham. And then here we've got Abraham and Sarah and Isaac, with a little information about them. And then here we have got the whole family tree of Abraham, right in here. I mean, this was just on one Torah portion for the children. So this, to me, this is why we're doing all of this. This is a legacy to the next generation. I'm so proud and blessed by what the mothers are doing here with the children's ministry, and I'm just blessed to be a part of it. And quite honestly, that's why we started Torah to the Tribes. It's because I'm like, I could stay home, out in the country, away from everybody, be a recluse quite easily and study and study and study and study. But what about the children? I want a place for the children and the grandchildren and the next generation. And that's what this ministry is developing into. But to see the fruits of this is so rewarding. To see the faces and to see that people with children are truly seeking Yahweh to the next generation. And we're not back there doing fluff. We're not back there playing games. They're searching out the scriptures and they're learning. That to me is encouraging, because I have seen in the ministry over the years so many children's programs that are so carnal and filled with fluff that they're not in the Word. But we're in the Word here. Us, the adults, and the children. So I'm just so impressed, and say, please, if you want to support this program that we're doing here, please get involved and sign up, because we'd love to have more teachers. So it's a great thing that we got going on. So I'm hearing a bit of an echo in the back there, is that? Okay. Encouraging, because I have seen in the ministry over the years. I'm talking to myself. Has it gone? It's those voice. Yeah, watch the voices in the head. This week's Torah Parsha Bo. When I started teaching the Torah, I think it was 11 years ago now. I'm still hearing myself. What's going on? Hearing a bit of an echo in the back there, is that? Okay. Oh. I'm talking to myself. This is getting weird. There is no, I mean, I can be focused, but I can't be that focused because I can distracting myself. Torah Parsha Bo. When I started teaching the Torah, I think it was 11 years ago now, I'm still hearing myself. What's going on? Oh. That's what I sound like. I quit. I quit. All right. Okay, I'm back. I don't have to listen to myself. You guys have to listen to me. And I didn't hear an echo. That's good. All right. Torah Parsha Bo. Father Yahweh, we thank you so much for your Kadosh holy word. And Abba, you would light us on fire today. Light us on fire and kindle us, Abba Yahweh, for righteousness in Yeshua's mighty name. Let's turn to Shemot, Exodus chapter 4, verse 2, as we jump into Torah Parsha Bo. And you shall say to Pharaoh, this saith Yahweh, Israel is my son, even my Bachor, my firstborn. And I say to you, let my son go, that he may serve me. And if you refuse to let him go, see, I will slay your son, even your Bachor, firstborn. Now, in that phrase, what we see is the beginning of this whole episode that the rest of the book of Shemot up until this Torah Parsha, and they leave with the Exodus, the final fleeing out of Mitzrayim. But it began right here. In Exodus chapter 4, verse 22, because Yahweh said what? He said, Israel is my firstborn, my Bachor, my firstborn. Now in that phrase, every third letter in that phrase spells Yerushalayim, Jerusalem. You've got the Yod, Resh, Shin, Lamed, Mem. Every third letter in the phrase, Israel is my son, even my firstborn, spells Jerusalem. Why am I telling you this? Because just like it did then, is how it will be today. It begins with Jerusalem, and it's going to end with Jerusalem. So we need to have our eyes set on what's going on in the Middle East. We need to have our eyes set on Jerusalem, because that's where it began, and this is where it's going to end up. No different, no different. That's why I focus so strongly on the understanding of things that are going on in Jerusalem. We need to know what's going to go on as far as the priesthood. We need to know what's going on as far as the temple. We need to know what's going on as far as the altars, because it's all going to be happening where? In Jerusalem. And we don't want to be deceived, because that is part of the Exodus plan. And it's coded right into Bereshit, Shemot, Exodus 4, verse 22. So as we get into this week's Torah Parsha, I want to give you an overview. We're going to be looking at Passover, Pesach in the Hebrew, because Passover begins that marriage process. And Passover's origin is not here in the book of Shemot. Passover didn't originate here in the book of Exodus. Passover originated with Melchizedek. It's a Melchizedek covenant ordinance. Do that. We're going to have to look and see how we treat the lamb, because how we treat the lamb is going to be very important in our walk. Should we boil that lamb? Should we roast that lamb? Should we poke that lamb? Should we put that lamb up on a stake and parade it before people? What should we do with the lamb? How we treat the lamb reflects our walk and reflects our heart towards Yeshua. So let's look and see how we should truly treat the Pesach, the Passover lamb. Are we going to celebrate Passover? Are we going to celebrate truly what the word of Yahweh says? Because otherwise you'll find yourself celebrating the feast and the sacrifice of Cain, when really we should be celebrating the sacrifice of Abel. We're going to be looking at the distinction between the sacrifice of Cain and the sacrifice of Abel. And finally, we'll deal with the death of the firstborn and the fleeing of Yahweh's people out of Egypt. That we have a place to go. We have refuge. So a lot to cover in this week's Torah portion. But first off, let's deal with Pesach, because Pesach, Passover, is the first step of a three-part marriage. The first step of a three-part marriage. And it's really known as the dedication stage, because you're dedicating that family, that house, sanctified and set apart unto Yahweh. And when they put the blood on the doorpost and the lintel, that was a dedication of that house. It was a set apart, dedicated space. So the first step in this three-part marriage process is Passover. The second step in this marriage process that we're in is what? Shavuot. Shavuot is the betrothal stage. It's marriage without the consummation. It's marriage without the consummation. You see, Torah, covenant Melchizedek Torah, Exodus 19:3 through 24:10, that book of the covenant is what? The marriage contract. So we are in this marriage contract. We have vowed to be a part of something. We are in the betrothal stage, but we are not yet what? In full marriage. Because the third step of this marriage process is the full-on marriage. And that doesn't happen until Sukkot. Sukkot is the full marriage, the marriage feast of the Lamb. That's when we see the full culmination of this walk. And many of us, when we were in the church, were like, well, I'm the bride of Christ. And that was it for us. But we didn't think about how we really are to look at this in the scripture. A one step, one deal thing. This is a walk of sanctification into holiness. And once we get saved, we begin that walk. But we have to go deeper and deeper and deeper, because ultimately we want to end up fully married, but we've got to go to the Feast of Sukkot. So this is connected. This week's Torah Parsha about that full marriage. We're taught to be content. I was at Calvary Chapel taught to be content. Just dedicate your life to Jesus. Dedicate your life to Christ. But that's not even the first part when you think about it. That's not even the first part. Because where do you meet Jesus? You meet Jesus at Easter, don't you? You certainly don't meet him at Passover. The first part is meeting Yeshua at Passover. The lamb didn't show up at Easter, the bunny did. So we weren't even right on that. So we have to go back to the Pesach, the Passover, because that's where you meet the lamb. So we can walk around and we can say, I'm the bride of Christ, but we haven't even shown up at Passover. How on earth are we supposed to truly meet the lamb and understand the lamb without showing up at Passover? Because the counterfeit, it's going to lead you eventually down the wrong road, is it not? Now that we've met the Lamb, because we do celebrate the Passover, we've got to be careful not to get complacent. Because now I've got a little bit of Torah knowledge, I can get complacent. And you can become content with the betrothal stage. Well, now that's great. I've come to Passover. I'm at the betrothal stage. I'm betrothed to Yeshua. And you show up at Shavuot. And that's the second part. But we want to get to the third part, which is to what? Finish well. Finish well, my good and faithful servant. That means that we have got to make it through, all the way through to Sukkot. And if you look in Israel, from the time of Shavuot to Sukkot, it is a long, dry, hot, drought time. You've got to be able to endure the drought. And you have got to be able to make it through to those full festivals. And that, I believe, is where we're at right now. We are between Shavuot and Sukkot in Yahweh's prophetic timeline. There's a dry time coming. It's a time of drought. And are you going to be able to endure? Do you have the faith? Do you have the strength? Do you have the courage to be able to endure all the way to Sukkot? Because discovering Passover and making it all the way through to the end is a difference. It's the difference between the Aleph and the difference between the Tav. Because you've got Aleph salvation, which is the milk of the word, and then you've got Tav salvation, which is the meat of the word or the meat of the kingdom. And together you need them both. We've got to start off with the milk, but we need to end up with the meat. We have to start off walking slowly with Yeshua, but ultimately we need to get into the meat of the kingdom. And that's why I'm focusing so much on the Melchizedek, because it's the meat of the kingdom. We've had enough time in the milk, and now it's time for the meat of the covenant kingdom. So when King Hezekiah of Judah sought to bring the people back to Yahweh, he sought to bring them back with a relationship. What was the first thing that King Hezekiah did? He called for a revival of what? Pesach. Passover. That's the first thing that he called them to. That's why Yahweh has called for the restoration of Passover, I believe, in our days. Some of the first things that people turn to when they start turning back to the Torah of Yahweh is saying, you know what? I'm going to have Passover this year. I'm going to have a Passover Seder at my house. That is the first sign of Yahweh restoring your household, having fellowship with one another. If you turn with me now to Shemot, Exodus chapter 12 and verse 1. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe and Aaron in the land of Mitzrayim, saying, this moon shall be for you the beginning of moons. It shall be the first moon of the year for you. Speak to all the congregation of Israel, saying, in the 10th day of this moon, they shall take for themselves every man a lamb, according to the bayit of their avot, the house of their fathers, a lamb for a bayit. And if the household is too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next to his bayit take it according to the number of their beings. Every man according to his needs, you shall make your count for the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish. Without blemish, a male of the first year. You shall take it out from the sheep or from the goats, and you shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same moon, and the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it between the evenings. The Hebrew word there is bain ha baim, between the evenings, and they shall then take the dam, the blood, and strike. The Hebrew word there for strike is natan, and it's spelled nun, che, nun, sofit. And we're going to look at that word. And you shall strike it on the two sides of the posts, on the upper doorpost of their houses, in which they shall eat. And they shall eat the flesh in the night, roasted with fire and matzah, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. Eat none of it raw, nor cooked or boiled at all with ma'im, water, but roasted with fire, its head and its legs with its inside parts. And you shall let nothing of it remain until the morning. That which remains until the morning you shall burn with fire. And this is how you shall eat it, with your loins dressed and shoes on your feet and a staff in your hand. And you shall eat it in a great hurry, in haste. For I will pass through the land of Mitzrayim this night, and I will smite all the Bachor, all the firstborn in the land of Mitzrayim, both man and beast, against all the Elohim of the Mitzrayim. And I will execute mishpat, judgment, because I am Yahweh. And the dam shall be to you as an oat. The blood is a sign. The blood is a sign upon the batim, the house where you are. And where I see the dam, blood, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you, when I smite the land of the Mitzrayim. And this day shall be to you for a memorial, and you shall shomer, the Hebrew word there to guard, it is a moed to Yahweh throughout your generations. You shall shomer it, guard it, as a moed by a mishpat leolam vayed. It is a judgment, and it's forever and ever. These are the verses that troubled me back in the church. A mishpat, leolam vayed. But Pastor, it says back here that it's forever and ever. Oh yes, but that's just a principle now. Well, where did it turn from a mitzvot to a principle? What verse is that? And that way you're kind of ushered out of the way. This is literally how it started. We still have it, my wife's old NIV, and it's all got these pencil marks all around this moed or Shabbat, leolam vayed, forever and ever, throughout your generations. And you're like, okay, doesn't make sense, but don't want to cause trouble. Finally, I caused some trouble, and here we are. Let's look at the Hebrew word for striking the doorpost. Natan, it means to consecrate, to dedicate, to appoint, to constitute, to entrust. And when we look back at Chava, when we look back at Eve, what did she do? Entrust and dedicated the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil to Adam, and what happened? Sin entered into the world. So you better be careful what you dedicate. You better be careful what you entrust. And that's what she did. She entrusted it into Adam, and there you go. Natan is involved. This Hebrew word is involved in every aspect of our life. From creation, the fall, Cain, the Zadik, the promised son of Abraham, the life of Yaakov, Israel, the life of Joseph, the preparation of food, even during the economic collapse that you saw when Joseph was preparing the land of Egypt for that economic collapse and the lean years. Natan, strike, dedicate, set something aside. We have to be wary of what we're doing when we come to Passover. And Passover is the oldest religious observance on the planet aside from Shabbat. And it didn't start in the book of Shemot. Let's look at the origin of Pesach, Passover. Well, we can see it described more description here in Shemot, Exodus 12, verse 40. Now the sojourning of the children of Israel, we touched on this briefly last week, but this is going to tell you about their sojourn, who dwelt in Mitzrayim was 430 years, and it came to pass at the end of the 430 years, even on the very same day. So when did they leave Egypt? At Passover, right? But it says that it happened even on the very same day. The Hebrew word there is etzem yom. What very same day? What happened 430 years earlier on the very same day? It was the body and limb day. The flaying of the pieces in Genesis 15. The very same day, that was a Passover, because Passover didn't start in the book of Exodus. It came to pass that all the divisions of Yahweh went out from the land of Mitzrayim. You see, Bereshit, Genesis chapter 15, it is that body and limb day. It is that Natan day, that striking of the doorpost. And if you turn back to Genesis, Bereshit chapter 15, it will show you that it was the first Pesach blood covenant. That was a Melchizedek blood covenant. the first Pesach right there, which Yahweh will renew with Israel in Mitzrayim. Sometimes it says 400, sometimes it says 430, and we spoke a bit about that last week, but let me clarify. Because it was exactly 400 years from the birth of Isaac and exactly 430 years from the blood sacrifice promised to Abraham. That's the renewal of this covenant in Passover is seen in Egypt. But it was a renewal of that blood covenant because their time was nigh and they were about to have it blood ratified. That book of the covenant was about to be blood ratified. The promises were coming to their fruition. They were going to be delivered and they were going straight into the promised land. Except they liked gold. And that sent them off on a leg that lasted well over 1,000 years of trouble. The renewal of this covenant is Passover in Egypt. It was a dedication or engagement between Yahweh and Israel. This is the Melchizedek realm that we're examining. I think it is amazing each and every year. You see, Passover, it's not some Jewish thing. Passover, this is a Melchizedek thing. This is a Yeshua thing. All the way from Bereshit, Genesis chapter 15. This belongs to the followers of Yeshua, those who are a kingdom of priests, a holy nation. This is our Passover is the true Melchizedek feast day. It truly is. It constitutes the proposal, the acceptance, the blood ratification, and the covenant confirming meal. And you see it began in Genesis chapter 15 and verse 7. I won't read it for time, but then the next time you see Passover is in Bereshit, Genesis chapter 17, verse 21. But my covenant I will establish with Yitzhak, whom Sarah shall bear to you at this set time. And right there the Hebrew phrase is moed, at this moed. In the next year. So Isaac would be born when? When was Isaac born? At Passover the following year. The promised son will be brought forth and bring deliverance to the generations. When? Passover. And then the next time we see it is in Bereshit chapter 18, Genesis 18 verse 6. We see the next Passover reference. And Abraham ran into the tent of Sarah and said, "Make ready quickly 3 measures of fine flour, knead it and make cakes." They weren't making birthday cakes or Christmas cakes, but they were making ugar in the Hebrew, spelled ayin gimel chay, a cake baked under hot cinders, especially for a journey or in haste. Unleavened cakes, the same as Exodus 12, verse 39. The bread of haste. They were making the bread of haste. Then the next time you see this all being brought together about Passover is Genesis chapter 19 and verse 3. Of course, we've got Lot in Sodom with the 2 Malachim, angels, and he pressured them greatly, and they turned in to stay with him and entered into his bayit house, and he made them a feast. And he did make matzah, and they did eat. And then finally, Bereshit, Genesis chapter 21, and Yahweh visited Sarah, and he said, as he had said, and Yahweh did to Sarah as he had spoken. For Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age at that set time, the Hebrew phrase there again, moed, of which Elohim had spoken to him. And Abraham called the name of his son that was born to him, who Sarah bore to him, Yitzhak. Now, in Rosh Hashanah 11a, it says that this happened the first day of Pesach. So Passover originated as a Melchizedek rite, and that is why it is always referenced as our redemption deliverance, and it belongs to the Brit Hadashah community. It's not some Jewish ordinance that you're trying to stamp in on and kind of muscle in on, which has been portrayed to many of us. But no, it precedes Shemot. It belongs to the children, but not just generalized children, to the Melchizedek realm, because that's where it originated from. This is ownership. This is you taking ownership of what belongs to you, which is your right as children of the King. Isn't that amazing? It's about separation. It's about striking and dedicating yourself and separating from the nations, separating from Israel. Separating from, not Israel, the world as Israel. We are Israel, we separate from the world. Because Israel is my firstborn son, let him go so he can come and worship me. And what better place than to worship at Shabbat and starting the year with Passover. And it's coming up very shortly. Those who ate the Passover lamb were given the strength to flee from Egypt without disease or sickness. No disease, no sickness. And when we partake of Yeshua, Moshiach, the Passover lamb, we'll find that our physical health, our strength, as much as our spiritual health and strength are going to be increased. I truly believe that, because he is the body and limb day that brings health to the whole body, not just physically, supernaturally, spiritually. Behold, the Lamb of Eloah who takes away the sins of the world. But that lamb was not to be boiled. That lamb was to be what? Roasted. So how we treat the lamb is very important. Very important. You see, the roasted meat would be hard where the fire touched it. That roasted meat would be hard where the fire touched it. Yet, it's soft and tender on the inside. It wasn't watered down, but it was refined in the fire. Many of us were given a watered down, soggy lamb, were we not? But the Torah teaches us the roasted, nutritional lamb. It's the deep meat of the kingdom. Whereas the counterfeit, it's boiled everywhere. It is boiled, it is soggy, it is full of grace, and that's all it's full of. It's wet, it's damp with grace, if you will. But that disqualifies the lamb as the authentic Passover lamb, does it not? Because that lamb cannot be soggy, it has to be roasted. So what are we presenting? What is religion presenting to us? I believe religion presents us the soggy lamb, and we need to get back to the roasted lamb, because there's a difference. There's the counterfeit, there's the authentic. This is the truth. And the living Torah was made flesh and dwelt among us. And we saw his Tifereth, his glory. The Tifereth as the only brought forth of the Abba, full of unmerited favor and truth. That's the Lamb. You see, some congregations have put so much water in the pot of their own reasonings, and they've boiled in their own doctrines and speculations until all the flavor, all the desirableness of Yeshua is taken away. And that's what happens. It's only in roasting in the flavor of the meat that it's retained and enhanced. And so many people, they lose the faith because Yeshua loses the taste. They lose the taste. They lose the taste for their first love because it's become soggy. But you've got to roast in the flavor. You got to be all, that's why I'm all fired up all the time. You've got to be roasting the flavor of Yeshua. And that taste just gets better and better and better each and every year. That's what we mean by the meat of the gospel opposed to the milky and watery word of the gospel that waters down the boiled meat. The so-called truth about Jesus that's handed down to us by the liberals is what? It's raw. It's soaked with water. It truly is. They dilute the doctrine of salvation and the atonement until there's no nutrition in the word anymore. And everyone wonders why the church is emptying. It's emptying. And pastors are walking away because they've been delivering to you a boiled lamb. Even they get no nutrition. How do you treat the lamb? It all comes back to Passover. And then we get to the bread, chametz, unleavened bread. Now, does a spring send forth fresh water and bitter from the same opening? It's a word of caution, because even of us, there's a lot of leavened bread out, even in the Torah movement. There's a lot of leavened Levitical Torah being taught. There's fresh water and bitter, and it's coming from the same opening, and people don't know. Well, what really is Torah? Are we supposed to be doing all this Levitical stuff, or is it Melchizedek covenant Torah? I'm trying to set apart the Melchizedek Torah as the lifestyle for the believer in Yeshua. Because otherwise, people, you've got bitter and you've got fresh, and it's coming from the same opening. Torah, Torah, Torah. We need to distinguish. We've got to pass through the fire of affliction, all of us. And that's a personal journey. Because we've got to get the dross of Egypt out of our lives. Boiling isn't going to do it. And that's why you can sit in the church and you can not be refined and you can not have a holy lifestyle. Because it's okay. It's okay to be boiled, get soggy in there. But when you're truly in the word of Yahweh, you will be refined. If you're in the Torah congregation, you're going to be refined, because we've got to get the dross out of Egypt. We've got to burn it out. The Passover lamb brings grace, sure. But that Passover lamb brings judgment, because we're all of us, going to be refined and roasted through the same fire. Does that make sense? Malachi 3:3. He will sit as a refiner and a purifier of silver. He will purify the sons of Levi and purge them as gold and silver, that they may offer to Yahweh an offering in righteousness. So the sons of Aaron that we see, all this Levitical realm, that was the second string, plan B priesthood of the Tanakh. It wasn't the Melchizedek realm. That was the plan B second string solution. The priesthood now has been transferred back to its original Passover state. The Melchizedek state of the flayed open pieces. This is what Passover really does establish. So when we celebrate the Passover this year, it's back in its original Melchizedek state. That means it's royal, it's kingly. And how are we refined with that same fire that the Lamb is? Love mingled with truth, yeah, but it's the whole truth. That means that's the whole book of the covenant. It's not the book of the law, Levitical Torah, because it's the book of the covenant Melchizedek Torah, which predates the Levitical concession, because that is plan B, that's the second string solution. That's not for us. We have so much more. Don't choose the soft option. Don't choose the boiled option. Does that make sense? The book of the law, Levitical Torah, is the boiled option. It's so full of other things other than Yeshua, but the book of the covenant Torah is Melchizedek. It is roasted, and it is all about Yeshua, because it's a Melchizedek realm, and it goes back and it predates the Passover of Exodus all the way back to Genesis and the flaying over the pieces. That's why Paul emphasizes to the Galatians the importance about recognizing that we are the children of promise of the covenants of Abraham, because he wants to get us back to that Melchizedek Passover realm. But we're that lamb till morning. We're not to leave or keep any till the next day, just as we must partake of the entire gospel and not just the parts we like. That includes the keeping of the right dividing point in 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 5. Rightly divide the word of Torah. Because that's talking about this Melchizedek transfer. But then the whole family, what would they do with the lamb? They would inspect the lamb. We need to all being taught in the assemblies. Even this message. But the Moedim of Yahweh have been designed to focus us on the essential elements of the faith so that we won't be deceived. And that's the importance of the feasts and festivals of Yahweh. They are designed to focus us on the essential elements of Yahweh. Passover has been given to us now for a reason, and I believe it's no accident. Each festival is for instruction, fellowship, and spiritual preparation. We need to cover our families, plead the blood of Mashiach for the protection of our family. I do that often. This illustrates that salvation isn't just personal, but it's also collective. It occurs in family units. That's what we see. The father and husband in a family are given a unique authority and responsibility as a family's coverer and intercessor. But Easter is the counterfeit. In Revelation, Gileana 17 verse 8, it says, "And those who dwell on the earth will marvel, whose names are not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world. When they see the beast that was and is not and yet is." You see, there's a counterfeit spirit in the world. There is a counterfeit spirit in the world that was and is not and as yet is. It appears on the surface. It appears on the surface to be like the Spirit of Yahweh. But inside, it's boiled rotten. It's boiled rotten. And it's left over till hell. It truly is. Because it's an uninspected demonic spirit. And that's what religion is practicing in this 21st century. But it's become normal because everybody's complacent. But Messiah's description is the one who is and who was and who is to come. Dark light, genuine light, or counterfeit light. Which light are we going to choose? Is the inner eye or the outer eye? Matthew 6:23 says, "If the light that is in you is darkness, how great is that darkness?" And when Hanukkah and Christmas appear, what appears with them? Lights everywhere. All of a sudden, lights are everywhere. They start, don't they? We're surrounded by the glitter, the illuminations that throw off a pleasant glow, and they're so cheerful to the eye. And that's just the problem, because it's the eye that gets illuminated, not the soul, right? And everyone's all like, oh, but Yahweh wants to illuminate the soul, not the eye. It's the inner realm, not the outer realm. The lamp of the body is the eye. If therefore the eye is good, Matthew 6:23, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in you is darkness, how great is that darkness? Christmas, Hanukkah, Easter, or Passover? These are the questions that we have to ask. Light is light, but when it's used to represent evil, it becomes an evil or dark light, does it not? And when we lust after this dark light, it's because our eye is bad. The way we perceive the world, our perception, is often that we focus on the religious traditions rather than the word of Yahweh. It's our perception. And if we perceive the world wrongly, then what should we do? We should come to the feasts and festivals of Yahweh, beginning at Passover. Passover is the key ingredient to our exodus from the untruth of Hanukkah, from the untruth of Christmas and from the untruth of Easter. Passover is the beginning of that exodus. And all who refuse to assemble at Passover are really actually declaring their allegiance to Pharaoh and the harlot. That's what you'll see. They may acknowledge Mashiach, but they refuse to walk with him. They have swallowed the lie that it's possible to be in Mashiach and be in the world at the same time. But it's really not. Not in our generation. Because to him who knows it's sin, it's sin. You can't go back. Once you've set your hand to the plow, you cannot go back. You just can't. Passover are really like unto Cain and Abel, because they're both sacrifices. They really are. They are both sacrifices. Cain or Easter has tried to slay Abel or Passover ever since the Roman Catholic Church picked up the murder weapon of Cain. The Roman Catholic Church changed the words of Elohim to deceive Israel, because Cain not only means possession, but it means the murder weapon that he used to slay Abel. It means spear. And that's how all the blood was spilt on the ground. He speared him. The very murder weapon, which is the thorn in the side of dispersed Israel, which is what Paul spoke of. The thorn is the deception which bore the Roman Catholic Church, which bore Protestantism, that became the bramble that entangles the whole of the assembly. And I'm just saying it's enough. I mean, which foundation are we going to choose? Cain is the foundation of the earthly religious kingdoms, and Abel is the foundation of the Melchizedek kingdom of Yahweh. I want to go with Abel and the foundation that he built. That is the realm that Yeshua, and that's why, of course, Yeshua was impaled with Longinus' spear. Why was Yeshua impaled with Longinus' spear? That's the centurion, according to tradition. Because it was the very same murder weapon of Cain that poured out his blood on the ground like water. So Yeshua's blood would cry out louder than Abel's blood, which would usher in victory for the rest of Adam's descendants. He silenced the cry with the very same weapon. With the very same weapon. Because Cain does not just mean possession, it means spear. The murder weapon. It's really time to leave Egypt. It really is. There's so much to talk about. Wow. Turn with me to Yirmiyahu, chapter 31, verse 3. This is a deep, deep week, as we look at the Passover. Before we get to the Passover, it just makes me realize the year that we're living in, 2015. We've got these continuation of these blood moons and the things that are happening in the world. Jeremiah 31, verse 3. Yahweh has appeared of old to me, saying, yes, I have loved you with an everlasting ahava, love. Therefore, with loving kindness, chesed olam, have I drawn you. Again, I will rebuild you, and you shall be rebuilt, O Virgin of Israel. You shall again take up your tambourines, and shall go forth in the dances, and of them that make simcha, joy. You shall yet plant vines upon the mountains of Shomron. The planters shall plant and shall treat them as normal. For there shall be a day that the called out, Netzarim, Notzrim, the ones who watch out on the mountains of Ephraim shall cry. That's you and I. And we shall arise and let us say, go up to Zion, to Yahweh our Elohim. For this, says Yahweh, sing with Simcha for Yaakov and shout among the chief of the nations. Publish Hallel, saying, Yahweh has saved your people, the remnant of Israel. See, I will bring them from the north country, and I will gather them from the ends of the earth. This is the greater Exodus. And with them the blind and the lame. You see, not everybody can see what you can see right now. And we have to be patient. We do. Not everybody can see what you can see. But that doesn't mean when things go sideways that they're not going to come with you. So you know what? Love them. Bless them. They may be blind. They may be lame. But when things go sideways, they'll come. Because it says right there that they will bring with them the blind and the lame. So we have to have Yahweh's heart for his people. Because you know what? You and I used to sit in the pews too. But Yahweh has healed our lameness, and he has taken away the blindness from our eyes so that we can be fired up for this message. Not some soggy rag. Right? The woman with the child in her labors, with child together, a great congregation, Kalal Gadol, shall shuv here, and they shall come with weeping. Yes, some of them are really going to be crying, let me tell you. When you drag them out and say, look, you can go to the FEMA camp, or you can come with me. I know, stop your crying, but you got to make a decision. This way or that way. I'm heading off here. They're blind. Well, I don't know. I can't see what you see. Well, you know, you can go there. They shine the spotlight on the way there. Or you can come here. And it's going to be a hard decision for people. I'm glad that we've already made our decision. We've already made the decision. They shall come with weeping and with tefillot. I will lead them. I will cause them to walk by the rivers of Maim with a straight derek, in which they shall not stumble. For I am the Abba of Israel. And Ephraim, who is Yahweh's firstborn? Is Judah Yahweh's firstborn? Is the firstborn Judah? No. Is it the religious systems of the Roman Catholic Church and the moon stance? No. It is Ephraim. Scattered in the nations, that's Yahweh's firstborn. And it always begins and it ends with the firstborn. Kepha Aleph, 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 16. It is written, be kadosh, for I am kadosh. And if you call on Abba, who without partiality judges according to each one's mitzvot, conduct yourselves throughout your time of sojourning in fear, knowing that you were not redeemed with corruptible things like silver or gold for your futile spiritual conduct received by tradition from your avot. That didn't redeem you at all. That just left you soggy. But you were redeemed because you are fired up because of the precious roasted blood of Yeshua as that roasted lamb without blemish and without spot. Look what Jeremiah says in chapter 2, verse 8, 12, and 13. The priests, they never ask themselves, where is Yahweh? So you've got to watch for the religious nutters, because they oftentimes don't inquire of Yahweh. Those Levitical priests, oftentimes they didn't inquire of Yahweh, the Eternal One. The guardians of Torah, they even ignored me. The powers that be, they rebelled against me. The prophets prophesied by fake deities and followed what can do no good. It's time to be appalled. O heavens, at this, be horrified, be utterly dazed, says Yahweh. And in verse 13, for my people, they have committed two evils. They have forsaken Yeshua, the living water, John 4:10, and hewed out bomb shelters. This is my translation. The Hebrew word there is Bahor, Bet Aleph Resh. They have hewn out bomb shelters for themselves, broken pits, which can hold no life. You see, because ultimately this Passover is about Exodus, and it's about entry. It's about fleeing from something, being covered by the roasted Melchizedek Lamb of Yahweh, not a Levitical second string solution substitute, but the roasted Melchizedek Lamb of Yahweh, which is a Melchizedek ordinance all the way back in Bereshit 15. And then Yahweh's going to deliver us out of this slavery system into something good. But the world in the meantime, not even the priests, they don't even listen to Yahweh oftentimes. And you know what? They run to the pits, to the bomb shelters, because that's their refuge. That's the world that we live in. But where is our refuge? The Hebrew word for refuge is miklat. Miklat. Mem kuf lamed tet. Mem kuf lamed tet. Miklat. Miklat. It means refuge. And in this exodus that's going to happen in our generation, believers are going to be called out to 12 cities of refuge all around the world. All around the world. You see, there were only 6 Levitical refuge cities, whereas there are 12 firstborn ones. Remember in Revelation 12? The woman wearing the starry crown of the 12 tribes who finds miklat. She finds miklat, refuge in the wilderness. She finds refuge in the wilderness. 6 is always the number of man. It's the number of imperfection. Whereas 12 always represents theocratic, tribal, and apostolic governmental rule. You see, Levitical cities can only protect, listen to this, Levitical cities can only protect a person who has accidentally spilled blood. That's unintentional sin. Is that good enough for you? You see, it's not good enough for me. Because I have sinned high-handedly. All of us have. So let's get off the farce that we're righteous by our own works, because the only righteousness comes because we can be covered by the one who was perfect, because we've all sinned high-handedly. We all have. So these Levitical cities of refuge, they ain't going to do you any good. They're not going to do me any good, because that was for accidental blood spilling. We need to prepare, to flee to Yahweh's firstborn cities. Because the firstborn cities is where you can flee for unconditional Melchizedek mercy. Full covering, and forgiveness. Our firstborn cities will exist to protect the innocent. They'll exist to protect the stateless. And Yahweh's harvesting us right now. He is literally harvesting us out of the nations right now to place us in these latter-day cities, to protect us against the New World Order, to protect us against this Illuminati extermination agenda. Because he wants us to seek shelter. He wants us, Yahweh says, you need to come to Miklat. You need to find refuge, protection from bloodshed, protection from vengeance. Places you and I can go where we can await true justice. Safely, we can await the process of law to take effect and not be at the mercy of those who have a personal vendetta against believers. There's people out there that will have a vendetta against you when they find out that you're a believer. Literally. They will literally in your workplace have a vendetta against you because you're a believer. And Yahweh's going to say, enough. I've looked, I've listened, and I've had enough. I'm taking my servant out of there where they can await true justice against those personal vendettas of people that want to take the rules and the regulations into their own hands just because you're a believer. You see, in today's reality, there's no refuge for us. There's no refuge for us. The Torah is like a dream. It's like a dream. And then we awaken from this dream that we're in. This is a dream, Shabbat, to me. It's a dream to be with the brethren. It's a dream to be in the Torah. And then I awaken from this dream, and I find that the New World Order has engineered a society where we have no refuge, where we're geared for no refuge. There's no escape. Instead, we awaken to what? We awaken to predator drones, militarized police, the suspension of posse comitatus, and we're all under the all-seeing eye of Google. I took my children to the dentist this week, and I nearly had to throw down with the dentist. I'm serious, because I didn't want to fill out 9 pages on an iPad and give all this information because I was paying cash. When I took out the cash, they looked at me like a criminal. They went over to the blinds, opened up the blinds at 7:30 in the morning and took a picture of my license plate. Because I wanted to pay cash and not do all of this stuff. They thought, this guy's weird. Now, what's weird is I wanted to get my kids' teeth cleaned and pay you cash. And I didn't want to go through all of your processes. And you have to open the blinds and take a picture of my license plate? Oh. What kind of world are we living in? I tell you, the world in Dubai. Have any of you heard about this? I think we've got something we can key up for you. The world in Dubai. You see, while we're all sitting in here in America and the globalists deconstruct and bring down this world that you and I have, they've set it up that we've got no refuge, no place to turn. And as they melt down and depress me here, when things go martial on us and we're all stuck here with no refuge, no plan but FEMA, well, of course, we've got a plan, but the majority of the citizens don't. Where do you think they're going? All of the Illuminati and New World Order globalists, they've created a place called the world in Dubai, where it is each separate island is a colony. There's 12 colonies. Remember the counterfeit? The truth is there's going to be 12 cities of refuge. But the globalists, they've created 12 colonies from which each state head can go to his colony and rule from there whilst their worldly system is brought down, and then they can recreate order out of chaos. Let's show you this. This is Dubai, the world. Do I need to give some narration, or do we actually have audio? We're going to see. But basically, this was created, and this was a Halliburton Bush production along with the Arabs. This is where they're going to flee to. Possibly, we're going to get it up. This is where they're going to flee to whilst the world is in chaos, and they'll still be able to rule.
An invitation that requested my presence in Tokyo, Cairo, Paris, New York, and Rio de Janeiro. But the part that intrigued me the most was that it was for one evening only. An invitation to dream bigger than I ever thought possible. It was an invitation to the world. With the visionary creation of the palm, Nakil has put Dubai on the map. Now, the world puts the map on Dubai, taking the earth as inspiration to reinvent beachfront property and inviting a select few to build the ultimate escape.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. Inviting a select few to build the ultimate escape. It's a Halliburton Bush project. So basically what they're planning to do is the world is going to be in chaos. The New World Order Illuminati flee to the world where they rule from their own colonies, whilst there's chaos. Then they return once order is restored, and it is the New World Order. This has been on the plan for years. This is where the head office of Halliburton is, in Dubai. The ones that have been so involved in the past wars over the past decade. I mean, they have a plan. They have a refuge. That's their refuge. That's their plan. Many kingdoms of where they already live will be in chaos, but they're ruled from the mini kingdom. This is their plan. This is what has been developed. It says in Numbers chapter 35, verse 6, "And among the cities which you shall give to the Levim, the Levites, there shall be 6 cities of refuge, which you shall appoint for the manslayer, that he may flee there." Even the Hebrew word, miklat, shelter, it's migrated from our biblical text to now in the modern Hebrew, they use arei miklat. Arei miklat is the biblical text, for the shelter, and it comes to us and we see it in Numbers. But now in modern Hebrew, it refers to a bomb shelter. What does that tell you? The word that Yahweh uses for a space that is related to set apartness and holiness, Yahweh uses it in a sacred context. It's become desacralized. It's now part of a God-free Zionist system of defense. It's a bomb shelter. That's all it is. Israel believes that it can find. The Illuminati believe that they can find refuge in a cistern, in a pit, in a bomb shelter, or in the world, in Dubai. Just like Saddam Hussein thought he could find refuge in a pit, in a cistern, in a world. And he was part of that system, part of that whole system. You see, the state of Israel was supposed to be that finally achieved place of refuge, was it not? It wasn't supposed to be just a city, but it was supposed to be a land of refuge after those millennia of wanderings and persecutions. But now it's the most dangerous place on the earth for Jews to live because it's failed. And Yahweh's going to change things over there, and he's going to change things over here. You see, Yahweh, I believe, will provide us these end-time cities of refuge because they fulfill the prophetic type. They're provided for guiltless Israel, true born-again Israel, to seek refuge from the murderous schemes of the New World Order. The 6 Levitical cities were dispersed throughout all of Israel. So will the 12 firstborn cities be dispersed throughout the world until we are called to gather home to the land of biblical Israel. That's the new millennial state. Not a Zionist state set up by the global cabal, but a state set up by Yahweh. The end-time 12 colonies of Israel. Believers tried to establish these colonies before. But the Illuminati, Freemasons, infiltrated their ranks and thwarted the plan. You see, that is why there were 12 colonies in the United States. But they tell you that it was 13. But no, there wasn't. There were 12 original colonies in the United States. Why? Because they were believers and they were trying to establish this biblical precedent right here in this land. But it failed because the Illuminati and the New World Order, they got hold of it and they got hold of this country. The colonialists were truly wanting to set up a refuge. They were. They were wanting to set up an escape from the Illuminati British Crown, which was totally corrupted and in their pockets. They took the biblical ordinance of the 12 colonies of refuge. But how come in our schools over here they teach you that there were 13 colonies? What's up with that? But it was only 12 colonies that actually rebelled against the Illuminati British rule in 1775. Because if you look into it, Delaware was never its own colony. Delaware was never its own colony, but was rather part of the Pennsylvania colony, which, until declaring itself an independent state on June 5th, 1776. So there were actually 12 colonies. You see, because I believe that they were trying to follow the biblical pattern. That's what this great country originally was for. But it has been so corrupted. Just go to Washington, D.C. and look at the architecture. It's all Illuminati, all New World Order. Because Yahweh is waiting for his time, not for men to do it, but he's the one that's going to do it. But Passover, this week's Torah portion, Passover teaches us that it is a tool for reform and a tool for our escape. The majority of people both love and hate their bondage simultaneously. They hate the bondage, but they love the flesh pots, you know? They view the Moedim much like Shabbat, fulfilled, done away with, or switched to another day of our own choosing. It's that same affected slave mentality, and that's what Yahweh wants to set us free from. Don't hate the bondage of Christianity, but then love the flesh pots of Hanukkah and Purim. What's the point in that? There's no point in that. I think there's a better way. I think there's a higher calling, the calling of the kingdom of Yahweh. I truly do. And this year when we celebrate Passover, I'm looking at it in a whole different realm. Because Passover was always Melchizedek. It was always that Melchizedek ordinance of Bereshit, Genesis 15, and you see it in the next text. It preceded the giving of the Levitical altar system. Melchizedek blood always covered the doorposts and lintels of the new covenant believer's heart. That's what Jeremiah speaks about in the 31st chapter, in the 31st verse. Without having to be on a Levitical altar. Because you know what? Passover was never about being on a Levitical altar, was it? Never. It was always about being on a Melchizedek altar. And really, I think we need to start looking at refuge. That Yahweh is our refuge. He's the one that will provide our refuge. Because the New World Order, they're looking for their own refuge. In Dubai, in wells, in bomb shelters and cisterns. But Yahweh is calling us to something different. This year, look and see. Because I believe that Yahweh is preparing the calling out of the children of Israel out of slavery. And as we look around, this week's Torah portion really matches the very life that we're in. Any questions, comments? A lot to cover there today, I covered. But yes, Brother Gil.
Got a question. Olam Bayed. When you said that it's Passover, Pesach, that means forever. Is that a different word that you used earlier? Or was it along you talk about Bixby Olam Bayed? Because we heard it earlier, that can mean just for a period of time, just Olam Bayed, not necessarily forever.
Yeah, Leolam Vayed doesn't necessarily mean forever and ever and ever and ever. It's mean for a set period of time, a set period of time. For instance, it talks about all of the sons of Aaron, Leolam Vayed, but then later there is a change only to the Eliezer line. So it was for a set period of time. So the question was, what does Leolam Vayed mean? Is it forever and ever and ever and ever? My answer is for a set, established, ordained period of time. Do you have another question back there? Guys are getting all techie with me back there.
There was a comment made. When you put the scriptures up on the screen, they appreciate it, they look great, but could you put them in English?
Put them in English. Were they not in the English?
Well, there's a lot of Hebrew in it.
There was a lot of Hebrew in there.
A little bit of tongue-in-cheek. But
Oh, right, yeah, nice one, yeah. Yes, yeah, question over there.
When they were, I'm referring to Exodus 13, verse 9, and it talked about Passover being a sign between your eyes and also a reminder between your eyes. And I think it says something about it possibly being on the hand in another verse. I'm not sure, but I noticed that in Revelation it says that, you know, this has a lot of, like, the opposite of the mark of the beast, because the mark of the beast is on the hand and the head. And then there's a time when the angel goes around and seals the saints of God on their foreheads. And so I'm wondering if that didn't have something to do with the Passover, because we have, you know, the mark of the world system, and we have a mark here with Passover. I don't know. I just kind of see a correlation.
Well, that's exactly it. Passover is, and that was the whole point. Passover is a distinguishing mark. And with Passover, you have all of those ordinances, and connected to the Passover ordinance is, you know, that you shall bind his word around your arm, and that it shall be a sign between your eyes. So that's all part of this this otim, this set-apart time that Passover truly is. I believe the key to delivering ourselves through the blood of the Lamb out of this slavery system. Any other questions and comments? Cabbage, anything? No, that's it. All right. So we want to thank our internet audience for visiting with us tonight as we get this production going more and more each and every week. And we'll be live streaming again next Shabbat at 5 o'clock. So please join us then. And Shabbat Shalom. Yeah.